Today we are diving into a review, well, really a critical summary, of a pretty intriguing theological book by S.C. Sales. It's called Biblical Law and Covenant, Sabbath, Tithing, and Authority under the New Covenant. So, what's at the heart of this book? Well, Sales is taking on one of Christianity's oldest and honestly most pesky sources of confusion. What actually binds the Christian conscience? Is it those Old Testament laws? Are things like Sabbath observance and tithing timeless rules for everyone, or are they more like covenant-era requirements that Christians today might not be obliged to follow? These are the kinds of questions that, cause hours of debate, and let's be honest, sometimes a lot of guilt or even division in churches. And Sales argues, well, that a lot of the fighting and confusion comes from what he calls category errors, confusing covenant-specific commands with universal, always binding moral law. So why does that matter for, regular people? Because if you've ever wondered, am I supposed to keep the Sabbath? Do I have to tithe? This book is zeroing in on the roots of that confusion. All right, let's talk methods and approach. One thing that really sticks out, again, not my opinion, just the book's style, is Sales's commitment to not build a whole new rule book. The book doesn't lay down the law, literally or figuratively. It refuses to force uniformity and avoids sort of weaponizing doctrine against people's consciences. The idea is, before you ask, what do I have to do, you should ask, what kind of relationship or covenant am I a part of? According to Sales, the Bible never presents law as just a floating list of eternal truths. It's always God speaking to a specific people at a specific time within a particular covenant. So law is more like instructions inside a relationship, not just traffic rules that apply the same everywhere and forever. That's a really interesting way to reframe the question. Now, big point in Sales' argument, he says the Sabbath was not a universal creation rule, but specifically a sign of the Mosaic covenant. Like, in his reading, God's rest in Genesis wasn't a command to Adam. The Sabbath didn't come into the picture as something to be kept until way later at Sinai. So according to this, asking, do Christians have to keep the Sabbath, is like, asking if you need to follow laws from a country you don't live in. The answer depends on whether you're actually under that covenant's jurisdiction. Same thing with tithing. Sales argues that tithing was about Levitical provision. It was never a universal law, and under the new covenant, generosity is meant to be free, not, under compulsion. So, if you've ever felt guilt-tripped in church about not hitting a tithe quota, this viewpoint says, wait, giving should flow from grace and spiritual freedom, not strict numerical rules. That's pretty pastoral, I think. And then there's a whole section on authority, both in the church and in civil government. Sales is very careful, especially these days with all the debates on, Christian nationalism and the role of religion in politics, to point out that biblical covenant law was never meant to be exported wholesale into national law. The church, he says, shouldn't try to act as the police of society, and civil authority should be understood within its own limits. It's ministerial, not covenantal. He wants readers to understand these aren't just academic arguments, they're about everyday confusion, real guilt, and how you actually live out your faith. Throughout, Sales insists he's not arguing for lawlessness. He wants to defend rightful authority. So, following Christ isn't about rejecting all structure, it's about not imposing obligations that the covenant doesn't bind you to. That means less unnecessary guilt and maybe a stronger, clearer sense of freedom. If you're a pastor, theologian, or just someone who's ever felt unsure about all this, maybe the book can offer a bit of clarity, maybe even relief.